My name's Colin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Spatial, and we've got a phenomenal panel here this afternoon with some great partners that we're working with. And hopefully some of you have been able to enjoy the wonderful experience from our partner Meow Wolf right next door, and the Spatial Holodeck, which is right behind here. We'll be running sessions on a half-hour basis the rest of the weekend. The Meow Wolf exhibit is ongoing, so just feel free to just explore. And there's wonderful details, so spend a little bit of time and actually understand the multi-layered approach to that creative. It's just phenomenal. So what I wanted to do is just introduce our panel here. I'm just so excited to have this team here. And the topic is super interesting. Metawhat, right? So at South by Southwest this year, there's a lot of meta things, which is interesting. I think we're all big believers in it's great to get human beings together and actually enjoy experiences. I mean, we're all here enjoying this. This is the way I like to interact with human beings. I think there's going to be some pretty cool metaverse experiences. I prefer most of my life in the real world. That's true for my kids, grandkids as well. So this panel has some opinions on this. So we'll go talk through this, like why real human experiences matter. So starting on this side of the stage, we've got Joanne Cicero. We've known Joe for a number of years. There's people on the spatial team that have known him for decades, I would say, not to date him at all. But just an amazing background, currently at Zeitgeist, but an amazing history at Disney Imagineering and building some of the best attractions that many people here in this room have enjoyed, which is incredible. And then there's a great intersection with Ollie from Meow Wolf. She's the chief creative officer there. And I kind of look at this as, it's just amazing to see a whole new team of creatives building experiences that impact human beings in a very different way. These aren't traditional rides where you go in a common path down. You explore them in very different ways. And obviously the impact that they've had is just tremendous. So thank you, Ollie, for joining this panel. And then we've got Justin from TAIT. Justin leads their business development efforts. And if any of you have seen an amazing artist named Pink, when she flies across a stadium, that is the responsibility of a company called TAIT. Not only do they design her stage, but they're responsible for her creative flying antics in a stadium. Just tremendous experience on that side. And then we've got Mike from Nightscape, CEO of the team that's built this wonderful visual experience that is tied in with spatial, so that's in a spatial holodeck. So I just would love to encourage all of you to just join in and check it all out. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mike to moderate this panel, and we'll get into Metawhat.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Super excited to be on stage with all these wonderful people. So to kick it off, I'll start with our first question, which is we're all so excited to be building amazing real-world experiences in very different ways. How are we differentiating ourselves from others in the market, and in what ways are our companies pushing boundaries? Anyone have something they want to kick it off with?
Sure.
Take it, Joe.
So I spent most of my career creating immersive storytelling experiences, and I think most of them were about connecting people in a deeper way to the experience. And some of the things that are exciting me about what I'm doing now and what I'm looking at is the fact that we have new tools like spatial, projection tools, all these things that are converging. We're converging. We're at this point where all these things are coming together now. And no one of them by themselves creates the experience, but putting them all together in a new way. But then going back to my life at Disney, with story or some kind of human connection to that experience, connecting all these things. Now, I was told earlier, I can't talk about there are a few things that we're doing together that I'm super excited about, but they will be the result of taking those stories, real-world experiences, and putting them together in a new kind of way.
Yeah, I think it's similar. Of course, from Meow Wolf, and we have the same background, Walt Disney Imagineering, of course. But I think what really excites me about what we're doing at Meow Wolf is that in our storytelling, it's so much a part of what the guest is experiencing, right? The visitor is creating their story as much as we're creating the story, right? Which is, and I think that what we're doing, what we're showing next door with the activation here with Spatial is just how much, when you start to layer on what you were talking about, like the various elements, like what we're doing here with Spatial, with audio and lighting, and all the layers of technology that you can add is just more access points, right, for people to create and imagine and inspire. And I think that adds to the storytelling.
I think that's the big difference of what we did,
and
what we're doing now. I mean, people are expecting agency. I mean, all of us are so much more connected to experiences and can control experiences with these devices and everything else. So there's an expectation of agency. I'm going to go into this experience and get more than just getting in a ride vehicle or sitting in a theater.
I'm going to get what I give to it and what I want to get out of it. My experiencing it is part of the end experience, right? It's a little bit meta. Sorry.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And on as the newcomer in the room, when I was building Nightscape. So Nightscape, we're doing all the visuals inside the holodeck, but we also have a state-of-the-art entertainment venue we're opening in Nashville in the next couple weeks that has 360 projection mapping and spatial audio by our wonderful partner Spatial, a number of other sensory elements, scent elements, modular furniture, all of those sorts of things. And in doing that, I spent a lot of time researching, and actually one of the stops along the way was Meow Wolf a few years ago. And I think one of the things I learned that was so powerful was it's not just about the visual or the audio, but it's what you feel when you walk into that space. And to that point that you're almost creating your own narrative. And I think that that's so important for people to have that story that they leave with, that moment that they remember, that one thing that really stuck with them. And it's not the same thing for everybody. And so you have to have, multiple of those touch points for people to be able to access.
Absolutely.
And I think more than now than ever, the technology that we have is allowing that opportunity. And I think that's where, it's really exciting to see that kind of continue to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, with that in mind, let's move to number 2. So define why you do what you do. What fuels your creative passion to bring such amazing experiences to life with our teams? And are there any specific examples or experiences, anything that's happened in your life, my life, that we can bring up and talk about that maybe set you on the path? Anyone got something to start with?
I think that, especially due to the pandemic, I think everybody feels the same way. We're as excited to create the experience as the fans are to experience it. I mean, we're fans too. So I would say that would be my take on that.
Short and sweet. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much opportunity now that's inspiring. We're also inspired to, I think, at least I am, to leave my desk, to leave my computer, to leave the Zoom chat, to leave the Zoom meeting, right? And so, we're all stepping back out into the physical world, and I find this moment right here inspiring me to do what we do. Like coming to South by is inspiring. Like we're all coming back into the world together, and that's extraordinary. And that I love, when I got to Austin a few days ago, it wasn't quite heated up yet, and the energy's been building and building and building, and that is what is driving me, or does drive me and gets me excited. It's just that we're all coming back together as humans and feeling that energy together in activations like this, or just out in the streets in Austin at South by, all celebrating each other's creativity. And that's inspiring.
So I've been very privileged that I've had this long career, and I would say that the constant that got me up in the morning, kept me going, was this thought of this great reward, that what I was doing, I'm not curing cancer, I'm not putting men on the moon, but I'm giving people a moment of a shared experience. And that's what we want as human beings. We want a shared experience. How many times you go to a restaurant, you have this is the best pizza I've ever had, and then you can't wait to tell your friends. And now, with social media, of course, you post your picture on Instagram with, that piece of pizza that I loved. But my whole career was about, and it's mostly at Disney, it was about families and families being together and having a shared experience. And I think that's just core in our DNA. We want to be together. We want to be able to go, oh, either with your kids or with your girlfriend or your significant other, have that moment of, wow, we did this thing and we connected in some way. Mm-hmm. And that's what these real world experiences are going to bring, and the things that all of us are involved in now, I think even bring it to another level of, how we give people agency, how we give them a moment to, send it out into the universe, in so many different ways. But it all gets back to, we're having this shared experience and we're enjoying this thing together.
Human connection, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, there's a time and a place for a headset, and I think that's absolutely going to continue to grow, and there's lots of great opportunities to have that. But I think that taking that off and experiencing that together, that memory that you make together, I think is so important. And for me, I think the thing that I go back to, and this will date myself, but when I was 14, I saw Daft Punk in concert. You're probably like 14. What is that? Last year, it was that moment for me where I saw this artist that I loved, and of course they haven't toured since then. And seeing this larger than life show, this experience that just completely fundamentally changed electronic music, and what an experience could look like as a concert. For me, it just disrupted what I thought could be possible, and I think for me, it gave me that opportunity to think, well, I could do something myself to create something exciting. And I think since then I've just been chasing that dream, and finally I get to bring that to life. But I think that moment is so important that I think there's probably that little thing that one day, I don't know when that happened for all of you, but what sent you down? I mean, is there a moment early in your careers or earlier in your lives that you were like, this is what I want to do, this is who I am? Is there anything like a inflection point?
Well, I had an inflection point when I was 9 years old. Does that count?
Totally.
Literally, when I was 9 years old, seeing a Broadway show for the first time, and I've told Joe this story. It was Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway, and that'll date me for those of you who know. And I remember just the moment of walking into that theater, and if anybody ever saw this production, it was the original production of Jesus Christ Superstar, and you walk into the theater, and the proscenium is just a solid wall. And then as the music starts, the whole floor starts to go down. And as the whole floor goes down, the actors start climbing over and tumbling down on the stage. And in my little 9-year-old brain, this was just the most amazing and inspiring thing I could imagine. Like the whole floor was moving. I thought, man, I've got to do that. Like somehow I've got to do that. I want to make that thing one day. And that was my moment. But I was 9. It took a long time till I got to work with Joe and make really cool stuff at Disney.
I remember I was going to Disneyland. I was probably like 4 years old. And we lived in Southern California. We lived in the suburbs, and my parents were not big outdoors people. And going on the canoes, and it was the first time I was in a canoe in the water. But I was in a theme park. I'm in Disneyland. And that really stuck with me, the idea that somebody created another world, created this other world experience that I got to experience. And that stayed with me. And throughout my career, I always would go back and touch on that in my head and go, wow, we're creating things that people can do, in the real world. And I remember I worked a lot in Japan, and they said that the most popular attraction at Tokyo Disneyland, at the time at least, were the canoes. And I go, oh, why was that? Well, because if you live in Japan, you work in a big gray building, or you live in a big gray building, and chances are you don't see pine trees and the American West and get in a canoe. And how that touched people. It wasn't going on the big high-tech rides or the roller coasters, whatever. It was getting in a canoe and riding the canoe.
A real world experience. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's all good stuff. So, okay, I'll take us to the next one, which is times have changed, and especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of different changes. So let's talk about the value of bringing people back together again. Obviously, this is awesome. The first time, I think this is 3 years since South by was in person, so it's awesome to be back here with everybody. So I think to the panels, how has your approach or thinking evolved over the last few years? Are there any new opportunities you're excited about that weren't on your radar previously? I mean, I think we all had a roadmap, a couple years ago where things were going. It went right or left, depending on how you look at it. And now it's taken a new trajectory. Anything that you guys have done, anything that's changed or something you've learned or even something in your, any of the things that you put together that you've changed how they've been? And maybe it's a good or a bad thing, but anything that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, Meow Wolf specifically, I mean, we kind of surprisingly, we even surprised ourselves, opened 2 exhibitions in the middle of this pandemic, right? We opened one in Las Vegas a year ago. A year ago. I'm looking at my Meow Wolf friends out there. And then in Denver 6 months ago, or something like that. And, we had... I think, we kind of went into it. It was interesting. We went into it in I think, a little bit of denial of what was really going on in the world. We kept building, we kept constructing. I mean, we were years in, and we kept at it, and we kept creating, and we brought artists onto the site, and we had big, and rockwork carvers and painters and artisans and everybody on the site, and we sort of, at a certain moment, we're like, oh, wait, we've got to figure out how we're going to open and operate in a pandemic. And that, I don't think it really shifted our creative, but it certainly had to shift the way we thought about space a little bit, right? Because suddenly we had to maybe limit attendance. We had to provide opportunities for people to socially distance. We had to do all of those things, but we never really changed. I wouldn't say that we made a big creative shift. We kind of did what we set out to do. And then we went in and accommodated for the moment. And the moment in time was this whacked out pandemic situation that we're all in, where we had to, accommodate for PPE, facial masks, social distancing, like I said, reduced attendance. And those were the biggest shifts. But now it's like, okay, we've done all of that, but now we're sort of coming back together in large, tight groups and reflexing our muscles. Like, what does it mean to be together as humans in a space, in a creative space? I think we're all sort of rediscovering that now and kind of figuring it out in a real way. Here we all are, tight quarters, happy, crossing our fingers, and without masks, yay. So anyway, I think that there's, I don't know that we haven't done a major shift to the business model or to how we approached design. We kind of went forward and just did it, and it's worked.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's been, a couple years ago, I've been working on this for about 4 years, and we had the venue we were opening in Nashville, I had a different location, a warehouse that we were going to open, and we were going to projection map and do a lot of the similar things, but the concept was a venue where we're going to do what's called pre-rendered content, which is loops of content. So when you and if you've been in there, you see the visual content, it's something that's been printed, and it plays over and over again. It's not real time. And, that was something we were going to do in this big warehouse in kind of an okay neighborhood in Nashville. And then the pandemic hit. And I'd been working, very, very hard for a long time, put everything on the line to hopefully see that to come to fruition. And then watching this kind of tumble and fall, you think, well, that's it. What I didn't realize, it was actually the biggest blessing I could have ever asked for, and kind of flipped the narrative from a negative to a positive. And that was because my wonderful business partner, Kevin, who's here, called me one day and said, hey, we need to switch to something called real-time rendering through Unreal Engine and Disguise and these different companies that could take real-time rendering to the next level with video. And he's telling me it was the future. And Kevin's brilliant, so I was like, okay, I believe you. Let's do it. And just instantly changed and made that pivot, and then decided to pivot to spatial audio. And a great story of how we got in touch with spatial, which is I was looking to build our website, and in that I found I was like, oh, I want to use this a certain kind of platform, and I found Spatial's website as an example. I love this. So let's just reach out and see who built it. Send an email, got a response. Hey, here's who built it. We can introduce you. By the way, we might want to talk because this seems like we're doing kind of very similar things. And 6 months later, here we are, sitting here doing these incredible activations. And we've actually built spatial audio into our venue, and Spatial's doing all of that. So kind of that same idea of how are things changing and how do we take it? I think that was for us the best thing that could have ever happened. And now as things are starting to ramp up, you see these people together again, and it's super exciting and kind of taught me a lesson that, one, don't ever give up, and two, take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, because I think there's been a bit of a tectonic shift in the industry in general, right? Because during the pandemic, like major organizations like Walt Disney Imagineering, by example, a lot of people went through, things like downsizing and shifts in their business model, and it's created, I think, opportunities. Oddly, the positive side is the opportunities that this pandemic has created by businesses closing, other people opening, and looking for new ways to bring art and creativity and imagination to the world. And I think the sort of odd upside to this weird downside that we've had is this whole sort of new world, this whole world of opportunity that is different. It's no longer about just Disney and Universal and some other major organizations. I was a little bit blown away when I was at IAAPA this past November. If that's the theme park convention, if anybody doesn't know. And usually when you're at IAAPA walking the floor, it's all about Disney and it's all about Universal. And those are the two big focuses. And folks from China who are bringing suitcases of cash to buy rides. But aside from that, this year I was really struck by the fact that as I was running into people I knew that I've known forever, we're all working for different companies and smaller companies, and people are taking advantage of sort of new ways of bringing immersive experiences and storytelling and art and creativity to the world, whether it's like in a storefront in a mall or in a large projection mapped space. All of these other ways of doing what we do have emerged out of this sort of weird time.
Yeah, all of a sudden, a lot of my peers who were designing theme parks are now involved with healthcare.
Yeah, right?
So what do you mean you're involved in healthcare? Well, we're thinking about how, people react to experiences, and you touch on this in your holodeck a little bit, but even more about, we have all this cumulative knowledge of how to create spaces and how to make people feel in spaces. But now we're applying it to all kinds of things. We're in healthcare. I recently went and toured the new arena in Las Vegas, the sports arena where the Raiders play. Can't remember the name of it. And
T-Mobile.
There, the T-Mobile.
How could you forget that?
Yeah. But the amount of kind of entertainment experiences and just environmental experience, just the way they're thinking about it. Again, I look back on my career. Yeah, those are things that we were doing there. So I think that very thing, all these people that were doing these other things in creating are now spreading them out. And that's exciting because I think all those things, again, are going to create deeper experiences using things like spatial and all the crazy things that you guys are doing, to bring people into these real world experiences in a deeper way.
Well, it's interesting that the term, we talk a lot about experience and immersive experience, and that's really, it's interesting to me that it is expanding to worlds like healthcare or just going to a game at a stadium. Like, it's becoming almost like an expectation that there's going to be some level of more of an experience or an element of storytelling that is additive to whatever it is we're doing. That's not just that's not a theme park. That's not an immersive creative art experience like Meow Wolf does. It's healthcare. It's ball games. It's shopping in a department store. But there's, I think, an opportunity now and people are recognizing that it's not just going to happen in a theme park environment. It's going to it can happen anywhere.
I think it's also the categories, but it's also what creates that. So for
Right.
me, another small story about after I went to Meow Wolf, this is an interesting story, but it was my birthday, and there's a spa, 10,000 Waves,
10,000 Waves,
in
yeah.
Santa Fe. If you haven't been, please go. It's amazing.
Go.
It was my birthday, and my mom was kind enough to get me a massage there for my birthday, and true story. And I was there the day after, and I remember sitting in this spa, and I'm just sitting there feeling very relaxed, and what I recognized was the thing that was creating that relaxation for me was the scent. And it clicked in my head, and I said, well, scent, why when we visual, audio, but scent is another big thing. And actually, I was in the bathroom here the other day, and there's an incredible diffuser in there. And it was so memorable to me, and now I'm leaving going, that was a great smell in that bathroom. It's like, of all the things in this space, that was the thing that stuck out to me. It's truly those things where, scent is important. So for our venue, we are going to have different scent elements that complement our experiences, because scent is that thing that you've all been in that space in an elevator or something, and you smell something and you go, oh, I remember that over here. I remember that over there. Or, whenever I'd say that in a pitch, everyone would always go, oh, it's like Soarin' at Disney. It's like Soarin' at Disney. It's like Soarin'. I'd heard it 50 times, but people were, that's instantly where they came back to. And I think it's the categories as well as the different ways that we can bring people in, and that seems to keep expanding.
And I think that's another thing we have to think about in terms of the connecting people to these created experiences, the power of the senses. Of course, this is all about the power of hearing, and how we often, like when we're designing these rides, where you only have a couple moments or minutes, to connect people to the experience. The value of IP, using IP, was that piece of music from, Frozen. You just hear those, just 3 or 4 bars, and people are immediately connected to that experience. But I think about like smells, and that, soaring experience where they put a little bit of orange in there, and all of a sudden you're in that world. So the power now of being able to use things like audio, using smell, and of course our strongest sense is what we see, and all the wonderful tools that we have there. But when you were talking about smells, like how often have we smelled something that brings us back to a time and place? I mean, so specific. There's like the smell of chlorine, and I'm back, in my first swimming lesson when I'm 3 years old, or hearing that piece of music and you're immediately back, with your family, sitting at the dinner table. So these, we should not discount the power that the senses have in our build. And then as we, as designers or whatever you're doing, have to dig deep and find out, what are those things that are going to, hit people right here, and bring them to that moment using those tools.
And to add one other thing to that, and I'll do a little spatial commercial here for a second. Some of the spatial people have heard me talk about this week, but we did an activation at the JW Marriott in Nashville where we created a whole Christmas experience. We had this big LED wall and created these different worlds that had scents and visuals, and you would eat and drink. And we had spatial audio, and it was one of the first coolest things. We were able to pair our Unreal Engine game with the audio. So we had in it, we had this big train that went by, and we connected that with spatial. And so when the train would go by, with the subs, you would hear it rumble by, and everyone would, it would be the coolest part of the experience. Everyone loved it. But there was 1 or 2 times when we were doing different things that we actually didn't have the sound on. And I quickly realized that when the sound wasn't on and people were eating and drinking and the train would go by, and in the first session, everyone heard it and went, everyone pulled out their phones, and did that. When you didn't have the sound, people didn't even know to look up. And it was that absence of sound that was missing. And that was the same thing that when we first got pitched on Spatial and sat across and had a meeting with the team, and you're in there in a meeting, and after Michael, who's here, said, just stop talking and listen, and you kind of hear this like very low, as you probably heard in here, this kind of low background noise of environmental sounds. And he just says, now imagine without it, and starts clicking them off, and all of a sudden you hear a dead silent room, and you go, oh, I didn't I didn't even know in the hour-long meeting that there was any sound in there. And I think it's that really incredible moment where you realize sometimes you don't even realize that that sensory experience is actually changing the feeling that you get. And the absence of it is the only way that you even realize it was there. And I think that that's such an interesting, cool thing. I think that's part of what Spatial's doing super well. That's, adding to our experience in a way that sometimes you don't even realize,
Commercial.
Yeah.
Commercial.
I know. When we get that one, we'll cut that one and we'll talk about it after. Anything else on that?
Probably.
Okay, well, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. Joe, Ali, this one's for both of you specifically. So technology has played a huge role in the evolution of real-world entertainment. You're both former Imagineers, as you've mentioned, and have built some amazing things at Disney. I think we all know that Disney's sort of the preeminent, creative, incredible company in the world. What lessons, skills, knowledge are you able to take from your time there, and how are you applying that to what you do today?
I think I was supposed to have a planned answer for this, and I don't.
I lost what it was, but I will. What do I? One of our great mentors at Disney was Marty Sklar, and he was this gentleman who worked directly with Walt, and so he was one of the few people around Imagineering who Walt that had that experience. And he always said that Walt had 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future. And the foot in the past was that understanding of the brand and the understanding of the human experience, the shared human experience. Walt said, behind every tear there's a smile, or behind every smile there's a tear, but understanding, that we are, on this planet, we are all connected, we all have the same human experience. So that was that foot in the past. But his foot in the future was embracing every new technology that came along. He was super, super curious. And I think that's a trait that we all should take with us. What is that cool new thing that's out there that I'm going to be able to use? Spatial technology, projection mapping, all these cool things, but go back and apply it to what is that thing that connects us as human beings. And that was the brilliance of Walt, that 1 foot in the past and the 1 foot in the future. And I hold on to that today. That's why as soon as I got that call from Daryl about, hey, Joe, and Daryl was a gentleman I worked with at Imagineering, is now with Spatial, and he told me about what these guys are doing. I go, oh my gosh, you have the opportunity to, this is another really super great tool that we could use.
Yeah, I love that foot in the past, foot in the future, that idea, because, I technology, the big term technology, but things like what Spatial is doing and all the various layers of technology, AR and VR, and all of the layering that we can now do in our experiences, for me, is all great. Like, that's all great. But I also like the fact, and I think it's important that we always remember that that's all options. That's optionality, right? There's also just the core. What I love about some of the things that I get to do with Meow Wolf is go back to the physical art making, the physical creation of a space, and that the exhibitions at Meow Wolf are made by Meow Wolf artists, and they are physical manifestations of their creativity, their imagination, their collaboration, and the technology layer that's so amazing, like what we're going on next door with the spatial audio layer, what we can do with lighting, what we can do with all of the senses we've talked about, is additive, but never losing sight of what is at the core, the physical world, and experiencing the physical world, whether it's created or real.
And that's what I tell Ali all the time. What I love about what you guys are doing is that I see the human hand in it all.
Right.
Like when you go next door, and sure, there's this great. I love what you guys did with the audioscape in there. That I'm immersed in this little audio moment. And looking at all the great lighting fixtures and all that. But then I look at your little islands, and I see a human hand created that thing and, painted it. And so there's this great connection between the human experience of doing something and a technology that just draws you deeper into that human moment.
Absolutely, and I think that makes you more present, right, at some level, right? Because because it's not just connecting human to human, right? You're connecting to the thing that the human did, and that is also a moment of human connectivity, and that's a moment of presence, and that's a moment of contemplation, and or just enjoying something delightful, which is kind of great.
Yeah, I think also there's patterns in everything, and you kind of see all the different things that you guys are doing. I feel like you keep seeing it come up in different iterations as it keeps evolving and growing. And I think that's something that I've like learning, hearing what you guys are talking about. It feels like that human connection. When I was talking about the research I was doing with Meow Wolf and going checking that out, I also saw a bunch of projection mapped venues of different kinds and doing my research and looking at them, and I felt this emptiness in the room, that the experience was staring at a wall, and that didn't register for me, because the whole thing why I started this thing was I really wanted to create something where we created different types of social experiences in a space that was modular, and I didn't have technology as a part of that. And only 2 or 3 months in did the idea hit me that I should use projection mapping to create that experience. And what I realized is the technology is a catalyst for the experience. It gives you that chance to create something unique and different that you can share with people. It is not itself the only experience. And I think that is something that really resonated with me, and what I hope, differentiates us from others in the space. And it, I hope from what it sounds like with what you learned from Disney, it sounds like that's something that resonates, with what you guys do too.
Well, and it goes back to what Joe said originally about shared human experiences, right, in spaces, whether it's in a projection map room or in a physical environment or in here, it's about shared human experience, human to human.
Great. All right, moving on. So technology, as we've talked about many times, integration in physical environments. What tools have helped improve the guest experience in your spaces? I think for me, spatial is obviously a big one of those things that we're going to see. Are there any examples of different concepts that you think you can point to where you've been able to integrate technology in a special way?
Colin mentioned it earlier with the performer flying technology that we do for Pink and Katy Perry and different artists. TAIT Navigator is a brand that we own as a proprietary software system, and it is the primary way to control all that thing from happening. Whether it's a Cirque du Soleil show, a concert tour, a theme park, the Disney ride and show controls is driven on a TAIT Navigator. So that's kind of something that sets us apart pretty uniquely. And really, it's the interesting thing that Colin and Mike and I, within the last year, have been chatting about how to really take this to another level using those different platforms. So, and this is my first time experiencing this as well, which is just, it's been amazing.
And I always joke with Justin, with TAIT. I mean, for any of you, TAIT is incredible. They do some amazing things in a lot of different areas. And I always say it's really hard to, what does TAIT do? It's tough, but you had a couple, I don't know, what was the line earlier?
Entertainment technology.
So if you go check out what TAIT does, because you'll go, oh, I've seen it there, and there, and I never even knew it. And I think that's they're when we say leading and pioneering the space, I think TAIT is truly at the forefront of that.
And I mean, our thrill is to work with designers and bring their visions and their creations to life. That's something that we thrive in.
Well, and I think what you do is so amazing, because I mean you're making a person fly, and nobody's thinking about what the thing is behind the person that's flying. They're just enjoying the fact that the person is flying, and that the idea that technology can be in the background of it is something that fascinates me, or is interesting to me. That it doesn't have to be a layer of technology. It's something like you don't even know it's there necessarily. It's woven in, or can be woven in. It can be a really obvious thing and a major component of an experience, whatever that technology is. But it also can be the thing that's in the background that you don't even know. Like in an exhibition, you touch a thing, and you touch a mushroom in a forest and it lights up. The delight is in the touching of the mushroom and the lighting up of the mushroom, not in the technology that made that happen, right? And that, I think, is so important. And that's something that we wrestle with at Meow Wolf a lot. Like, what is the right amount of obvious technology? Because it could be, very obvious, and that could be super cool. Or is it something that's, in the background, that's allowing things to happen, that's allowing the story to emerge, it's allowing a piece of artwork to come to life. And the tech is not the thing, but it is part of how you're experiencing the thing.
So to that point about the tech not being the thing, but listen to the tech because it'll inspire you, and then it can become the thing.
Then it can become the
In fact, one of the most exciting things I'm working on right now that I can't talk about is because I got the call from Daryl, and I went up and I saw what Spatial is doing, and now we're designing a whole thing around what they do. So my advice too is listen to the tech. And earlier I'm talking with Justin, I find out that a lot of the things that he's doing I've been using through the years. I didn't necessarily realize it, but listen to the tech. And you may have a small idea or a germ of an idea, and then the tech will inspire you to take it. So it doesn't become the thing, but it certainly motivates you to make a thing.
Absolutely. And it allows the thing to happen. We talk about things a lot here.
Well, that was also crazy when I went to Meow Wolf. We realized that every single person, when you start and you enter, every person's going to choose a different path and is going to end up. It's like it's like Plinko and Price is Right. You never know what path it's going to take, and I think that means that every person's going to have a different experience at the end of it. And then I remember searching and walking around, and finally I find myself in the back corner with the projection map room in the back in the club area, and seeing that and being like, oh, here's that technology. It was this really interesting kind of weave of things that you realize that people, the way they interact, it's not always the same. It's not every person has the same experience with that.
Absolutely, and I think with a Meow Wolf experience, what's interesting to me is that you can experience Meow Wolf on multiple levels. You can experience Meow Wolf just straight up visually, like you can just look and see and be inspired by the art, or you can dive in and touch things and turn things and make things happen, and that's where the tech piece of it comes in. Or you can boop. We have these booping cards and booping machines. Boop. Yeah, we do a lot of booping. It's a technical term. It is a highly technical term, and you can boop a monitor, and content will emerge, and that content is part of the narrative and part of the mystery that can be solved. And the story that evolves. So there's layers that can happen, but it is, to your point, it's like a choose your own adventure, right? Every time you go through it, you can go through a different path, and every time you go through it, you can experience it on a very just a visual level, or you can dive in. You can dive into the technology, you can dive into the story, you can go as deep as you want. And you can go deep. People go really deep, and I think that's also great. Something that, to be able to provide that sort of choice, right? That autonomy, that your own authority.
Yeah, I think getting back to this theme of real world experiences,
Right.
I think what you guys are doing and what we did at Disney. I always talked. Our audience was made up of floaters, swimmers, and divers. Right, and the floaters are those people that come into an experience, and they may not necessarily have a deep understanding of it, or even. And it's also a way to think about the demographics and the age groups. A little kid might have a very different experience in Meow Wolf than a group of teenagers, but you have to design an experience thinking about those levels of engagement, that you can have those people that are just going to come in and go, oh wow, look at the great colors and listen to the sound, and then you have the swimmers who have a little deeper understanding of it and want to go a little more, and then you're like at Meow Wolf. I've watched the divers
reading every piece
every
of
little
paper,
piece,
and
even me after
every button,
wow, and it draws you deeper into the experience.
Yeah, optionality.
So I guess that brings us to our last question, which I think is more of a forward thinking. This is called the future of real world entertainment. So speaking of which, what is the future of real world entertainment? Where do we see things going next 5, 10, 15 years? As when I mentioned this to Joe earlier, he goes, is this literal or philosophical? And I said, it could be whatever you want it to be. So, I think I know some things can or can't be said because of IP reasons. So, if you can or can't say where you think it's going because of that, whatever that means to you, anything jump out?
Well, sure. You want to go first? You can go first. I don't know. I mean, actually, for me, I think it's interesting. I think we're headed, as we've talked a lot about technology and what technology brings to experiences, I actually think that there's a future where maybe even less tech is going to become a thing. That I think when we start to get back to, we're going to get back to more and more what is important and what is core to these experiences. And that is, back to what you said, about human connection, human to human interaction. And I think we're going to start to see maybe a shift in, I think we're going to do a lot of technology, we're going to do a lot of really cool things, we're going to evolve all of the tools that we have at hand for sure, but I also think that there's going to be a return back to maybe just sitting across a table and having a meal being an experience, and tapping into that in a sort of as a reminder of where we've come from, foot in the past. So I think that the future is going to be looking back a little bit, personally.
I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know what the future is. But like I said earlier, I'm just excited about potentials, and I think remaining curious.
Yeah.
And keeping your radar on for whatever the next spatial is, or whatever the next cool technology you guys come up with, and seeing where that takes us. And we'll be surprised. I'll be surprised. I really don't know what the next great thing is going to be, but it's there. And if you're curious and you keep your antennas up, we'll find it.
I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever received was don't think about what you think is next, but look at what your mentors and the people that are really making waves. What are they doing next? I think it was a really interesting way of thinking, and that really prompted me to think, well, you look at some of these state-of-the-art cities, and I know you guys spent a lot of time in Hong Kong together. You look at Hong Kong, you look at Shanghai, you look at Tokyo, and the incredible amount of immersive technology. And I think that in San Francisco starting to get there, New York obviously has a lot of elements of that. I think a lot of the United States is going to start to look like that, whether we like it or not. There's going to be headsets, there's going to be LED walls everywhere, and there's going to be immersive experiences everywhere. That is what we're moving towards. And I think that I hope that we can be part of that, that narrative of how that comes to be, because it doesn't, you don't want it to just be LED walls everywhere just selling you something, but how can you take that and use that to create that immersive experience that brings people in? And I hope that, at least we can be a part of that. And I think that what everyone else is doing here is already, starting to look at that. But to me, I don't know what it is either, but I do feel like it's moving in that direction, and I hope to kind of try and be a part of that ship one way or another. Anything else? Closing thoughts? Yes, with that in mind, I believe that's on the money, 4:45. We've got a Q&A session. I think I'm handing this off to somebody. To Tom. Tom is somebody.
You're the somebody.
Everybody's somebody.
You're the somebody.
So I think it's interesting that you all kind of have the goal of creating these moments for social connection, and you're kind of going at it in a very tech forward way, like with projection mapping and stuff like that. And Meow Wolf has gone in the building out physical spaces to do that same thing. Are there advantages and disadvantages of one of those directions or the other?
Probably. I mean, I think I don't know if there's certainly there's advantages and disadvantages. I mean, one of the things that's fun about working with the Meow Wolf crew, one of the things that I love is that we kind of do it all. We're very, physical art, DIY, collaborative, chaotic designing and making, plus the layer of technology, plus. And I think that's sort of exciting, and I like that we kind of do whatever we want, which is really super fun.
I mean,
Guys break the rules.
We break rules.
Yeah, and which is art is messy, and that's why I like what you guys do. And in the grandest sense, it's messy, and you're not afraid. You can't be afraid, to take projection mapping and mix it with a real world thing, and with a piece of art behind it, and just mash it all together and come up with something different, new.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something in fearlessness, right?
Yeah.
Just to try something and see what happens.
I think, to that point, I think there could be, as I mentioned earlier, I think if the technology can't be the experience, it has to be a part of it. And I think with what we're doing too, we're doing an immersive dining experience that's a Italian castle that we've built. We're going to go through different rooms, and each one will have a different course. And what we talked about is, we have a great chef that we're working with in Nashville, and the food. If the experience can be amazing, the technology, the projection, the sound can be amazing. If you hate your meal, well, you're going to leave there and be like, that place sucked. But that's not. But that might not have been anything to do with us. So I think it's who you're working with and what you're bringing to the table and what those different pieces are. They all come together to tell that narrative. And I think that I was so blown away by Meow Wolf and what Ali has done and her team. But I think we share that desire, and I think just how we're getting there is just slightly different paths.
It's absolutely my team, not me.
Sorry, yes, Meow Wolf team.
It's the team. Yeah, sorry.
You guys mentioned a lot of Inception moment references, from Daft Punk to Jesus Christ Superstar to the Canoes. I don't know if we got to yours, Justin, but what's maybe one more contemporary example of an experience that you have attended and just been insanely jealous of? This blew my mind. I wish I'd had a hand in this. Something that inspires you further. Anything out there in the world? I know we've been on the shelf for a little bit, but that you're seeing now that you're like gets the creative energies going.
Yeah, I'm married to a fine artist. She's over there, Monica, with the blue hair, and she's opened my whole world to the and it's part of what Ali does. Installation art, and if you've never been to the Biennale in Venice, you owe it to yourself, if you're involved in any creative endeavor, to go there to just see, internationally, what artists are doing, with all kinds of things. And even though I'm not involved in fine art, I find it incredibly inspiring, these large-scale installations, small-scale installations, going through old palazzos that they've now have and the projecting mapping on the wall and a soundscape going on inside of it, and boy, is that inspiring.
Yeah, seeing all the fine art that's popping up in the most surprising of places has been a really interesting outcome of this pandemic, and I find that
because I think so much of what happens in the art scene is not driven by commerce, and it's not some big company saying we can't take chances. I mean, one of the things that I have to say why I walked out the door at Disney was, as it got more and more corporate, it became less and less about taking risks, and you have to take risks in order to do to do something great. And that's what I see with all these fine artists. They're fearless. They're doing big, bold, crazy things. They're taking risks, and maybe it works sometimes, maybe it fails. Failure is good, because then you're going to go off and try the next great thing.
Yeah. One of the coolest things I saw with my team is I could talk about Michael's backyard. Is that fair game? Okay, so Michael, who's one of the co-founders of Spatial here, and the story of how he came up with the idea came to life, and we went to his backyard. My team and I, we went there, and he has this incredible, beautiful outside in the Bay Area, this hillside, and just this amazing, like well sculpted landscaped environment. And when you walk through it, he has spatial discs basically just throughout the entire thing and the outside. And when you walk through it, it's like you're in a jungle. It's like you're in this world. You think you're completely another planet. You think you could be on a different continent. And you then realize he starts, just like I mentioned earlier in the meeting room, he starts clicking off all of the inputs, and all of a sudden you just hear like the lawnmower going away in the background, and you realize I thought that sound was real because it really made you think that, and I think that was one of those. It truly transported you and tricked you into believing you were somewhere you were not. And that was, I would say, in the last year or two, that was one of the most mind-blowing moments for me, and why I realized just how powerful what Spatial is doing, because it truly, we all left and just could not believe how much your mind just connects those dots, and that was really special.
Very cool.
Can you guys talk about the creative process, and if you can hear me, Joe, and in particular Marty's blank sheet of paper?
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. That's right. A blank white sheet of paper.
And not to be afraid.
Scares the heck out of me. I'm just saying.
That's just, getting back to what I was just saying a moment ago, you have to be fearless.
Yeah.
And just throw stuff at it, and some stuff will stick, some stuff won't, you may fail, but you just can't be afraid. The creative and the real creative process is not an A to B, and you got to enjoy. I always said, embrace the process and let the process kind of lead you. Because often you think, okay, I'm gonna go down this road, and I'm gonna get to the end result, but sometimes there's a roadblock, or sometimes it rains, or sometimes and rather than be angered by that, go, oh, well, I sat there and I couldn't go forward. A little squirrel walked by and did this thing and inspired a whole another train of thought that you wouldn't have done otherwise. You wouldn't have gone there otherwise.
Yeah, and I just the exhibition next door, the pop-up that Meow Wolf did. I mean, that was the result of a very different creative process than even I'm used to, and it very much was just sort of a blank white sheet of paper, but we brought groups of people together to collaboratively come up with anything they wanted with a simple prompt. I won't say what the prompt was, because maybe go check it out and you might figure it out for yourselves, but it became this extraordinary creative experience where groups of artists, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, depending on the size of the piece, came together and came up with a thing out of nothing based on a prompt. And it wasn't the normal design process that we have to go through, where we'll write a story and design a thing and then produce the thing and install the thing. This was much more organic, and the result is what's next door. So there's many different ways to go about it.
I would also just add that for our concept with Nightscape in Nashville, we're hosting different public experiences we're selling tickets to. We're also doing private and branded activations with other partners. But we're doing a March Madness experience where we have all the games going while you're sitting instead of a virtual arena. And if you might have been in there, you would have seen what it looks like. And then we're also doing this Italian dining experience. And then we're also going to be doing nightlife experiences that take place in different places around the world. And it's that we don't know what's going to stick. I don't know yet what's going to work, but we kind of have this playground to try different things, and not being afraid that one of them might not be the thing that is the one that scales and everyone wants to go to, but one of them might be. And I think having that vulnerability of knowing, hey, not everyone's going to love that, someone's not going to love it, but someone's going to be inspired by it. And I think for me, that's like pretty motivating to see that.
Hi, so my question is, in your opinion, how much technology is too much?
Allie, you want that one?
No, because I'll say something bad. I think the thing about technology is, there's no way to say how much technology is too much, but what's brilliant about it and brilliant about what all of the options that are out there, whether it's audio, we've been talking a lot about the amazing things that Spatial does, lighting, VR, AR, projection mapping, all of the various tools we have at our fingertips, we can pick and choose. And to me, technology that, I still go back to, technology that's invisible or not the obvious, not obvious to the experience is, to me, what's inspiring. But there may be, other kinds of experiences where technology is at the forefront, and that's important, and that's what it's about. So it really depends for me on the experience.
I think too much technology is one. It becomes obvious that
obvious.
it is technology that you're watching. I remember I did a project in Hong Kong, Mystic Manor, where we did a lot. I remember the team wanted to do a lot of film, a lot of projected things, and one of our competitors, Universal, does a lot of rides where you are looking at screens. And it's obvious that you're looking at a screen, and it still works. You still get some kind of emotional experience out of it, but I am looking at a screen, and I remember I think it was the closing ceremonies for the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, I think in Vancouver somewhere, and they did these amazing projections, but they were combining the projections with physical objects, and so you were more, and the music, and of course the choreography and all of it. So the total experience, you forgot that you were watching projection, and the technology went away. And I remember going into the team, and they had all these ideas about using projection. I said, you know what? Our goal is, and I put up a card, I never want to be aware that it is projection. Right. And it stretched them and it pushed them to try things, and we did a lot of combination of real world things, like that you projected on that move that you didn't realize it was projection because it was moving. So again, too much technology is when you're aware of the technology.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's a perfect answer.
I think for us, we have a lot of technology, so I hope it's not too much. But when you walk in to our venue, we have projection, we have lighting, we have sound. It's very obvious that it's there. But what I want to achieve, or what we're trying to achieve, is that when you walk in, the first thing you're going to notice is when you smell something, and then someone's going to hand you a drink with a lemon and cucumber in the water, something that is not about the technology. And that first memory you have is, sure, you might see the screen or the lighting, but the first thing you're going to remember is this thing you smelled. And I think that it's still, you can have the technology, but as long as it doesn't overwhelm to the point that it takes away from your own experience, to me, you can almost use it to your advantage, or just use something else to help kind of round it out. So yeah, I think that's how we're going to do it.
That's great. Cool. Are we good?
Anyone else?
Are we done?
One more.
One more.
One last question. Here you go.
So for Meow Wolf and Disney, you guys are writing stories and kind of expressing those in physical space and baking them in. How do you think about keeping them fresh and keeping people coming back? Like once they are a physical built out space, how do you keep that story fresh so people come back?
Well, it's very different for Disney than it is for Meow Wolf, right? Our experience at Disney was, that's very linear, emotional, very linear storytelling with emotional cues that bring you back over and over and over again, right? But for something like Meow Wolf, our narratives are so deep and complex, for one, that they're forever evolving, and there's layers and layers and layers you can experience. And then also, what's really important for me about Meow Wolf is that we are representative. We represent underrepresented artists, and so what's important is that we're forever reviving the work, we're forever refreshing the work. So just the physical space in Meow Wolf is evolving as well. So it's going to be different all the time. Similar, like Disney will build a new land or put up a new ride or do a thing that refreshes the theme park. We do the same thing in our exhibitions. We're refreshing the art. There's always going to be core spaces that remain pretty much the same, but there's always going to be a refresh of artists from the community that we go into so that the art is constantly changing and evolving.
And hopefully the core experience is deep enough and has enough connections to story and things that people like you said, having layers that it brings people back because they want to go a little deeper, or they want to dive, or share it with. I mean, one of the things with Disney is that it's every generation goes back because my parents took me there and we had this great shared experience, and then I want to take my kid there because we had a great shared experience, and now my daughter wants to take her kid there because they want to have a great shared experience. So I think if the core experience has all those deep things to it, it kind of naturally brings people back.
Emotional touch points. Yeah. Yep.
You can take it.
And I think
we're
set.
done.
So,
All right.
Special thanks to this just wonderful panel. Just couldn't do it without you.